Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Walk. I'm your host Joshua Ingram. It is Monday, January 11th, year of our Lord 2021. And this will be episode 2 of season 2. So, the past week here, not a really great week for me. Just kind of spiritually blasé, I guess. It's just status quo. Nothing really great. Nothing really too tragic or terrible. Um, I hate the doldrum of some of our, or at least for me personally, my spiritual walk, because we're supposed to rejoice always in the Lord. Like, the Christian life should be one that's dominated by joy. We have so much to be thankful for and grateful for, and really that's the key is thankfulness and gratefulness. But because I so often give attention to the flesh, I live a lot of my life in discontentment, not just wishing you had a different lot in life, but just full of regrets over personal sins because of the struggle with sin. So instead of having this, and I mentioned before, like, I'm a pretty emotionally stable person, so I don't have a really extreme lows and extreme highs. I'm really just kind of middle of the road. And so on the one hand, while we are supposed to have this great joy in the Lord, my persistent sin and struggles with sin and giving into the flesh tempers that, and I find myself in a state of not necessarily gloom, but just blasé is the right word. I don't know what another word for that is. Just kind of just a lackadaisical. What is the word for it? Not lethargy, or is it lethargy? I don't know how to pronounce that word. Lethargic. So I would suppose it would be lethargy. Is that a word? I don't know if that's the right word, but I find most of my life is spent in kind of this dull state of existence, rather than the joy, and that's a sin to my part. And like I say, it's because of not being thankful and not being grateful like I ought to be. We ought to wake up every day and just thank the Lord, and remember that we were once doomed sinners, lost and heading for hell, and we've been saved and redeemed by the grace of God, and we're no longer going to hell. So we ought to be filled with rejoicing, and just to like, no matter what state you find yourself in life, you have more than what you deserve, really, and so we ought to be thankful and grateful. And it's a sad state that a Christian would find themselves in, just this dull, tedious going through the motions of life. But really, that's what I do on a week to week basis. You wake up, you go to work, you do your hobbies, and then you go to bed and you do it all over again. And it's like, man, where's the joy in life? But if we were to just wake up and remember what we have to be thankful for, and offer praises to God, that would totally change our whole perspective. But to my own shame, I find myself not doing what I ought to do. And so that kind of leads me to my first thought here is, I had this idea earlier in the week about how we hunger and thirst after prayer. Like, in my personal life, I desire to have a greater prayer life. I want to be, I want to desire prayer. I want to spend copious amounts of time on my knees or in my prayer closet, or just quietly meditating upon the things of the Lord, just thinking upon Him. And there's this great longing in my heart, because I know that there's satisfaction there. I know that there's great joy in the presence of the Lord, which comes through prayer. I know that in his presence is the fullness of joy. I've tasted and seen these things, there's been times in my life where I've been so fulfilled, so satisfied, so overjoyed with his presence and with prayer. So knowing that's the avenue, that's where joy, this rejoicing and contentment and peace and happiness is found, is in that prayer closet. I then look at my life and I go, okay, knowing that, why don't I go to it? Why is it that I can know there is joy? There it is. I know where it's at. I can go get it. Why don't I go get it? Why do I find myself so often resistant to go into prayer, resistant to seeking that joy, seeking the Lord? And I was thinking about that the other day, and I really think it's because of the comfortable lives we live. Here in America, we have such an abundance of things, an abundance of comforts, that anytime I'm feeling any sort of discontentment, anytime I'm feeling any sort of boredom, for me, that's the big one, is boredom. Like I say, I don't necessarily get depressed. I don't necessarily get high lows and high highs. I'm middle of the road, but I'm often bored. I'm very dissatisfied with the excitement level in my life, really, I guess is how I would say it. But that boredom causes the flesh. So here's the thing. When we're discontent, the flesh then desires an outlet, desires an avenue to bring some sort of pleasure. And that's when sin and cravings become so strong and so powerful, is when we're down, when we're depressed or bored or angry or sad or whatever it is, anything outside of joy, anything outside of contentment. Whenever we're feeling something outside of that, we're in a vulnerable spot, because then the flesh is super powerful. Then sin seems very tempting, because the flesh learns that I can turn to these avenues and get instant satisfaction. I can get instant gratification. I can get instant pleasure. And so when you're in this state, and like I say, for me, it's boredom. So I'm going to just use myself as an example. When I'm in the state of boredom, and I know I should go to the Lord, like in him is where I will find my peace. In him is where I'll find my excitement and my joy and my contentment. But that's going to require sacrifice. The flesh doesn't want that. It's going to require me to get up, to go to my prayer closet, to set aside time, to turn the thoughts off, the wandering slideshow that goes throughout your mind, and just focus on the Lord. I know that it's going to require effort. And so when those moments of displeasure come, and I know I can turn to prayer to get the answer, my flesh says, hey, there's a quicker, easier answer. And that shows itself in various different forms through different people. For me, it's always entertainment. It's always just really, really easy to just turn the TV on, find something to watch, and shut the mind off. Just veg out and be entertained, be amused. So then I'm no longer bored. I have something to fulfill that. And I've talked about in the past how I'd come into this time where that was no longer satisfying. And so you're stuck in this catch-22, because you have this craving and desire to be satisfied within you. You have this craving and desire to be filled with joy. And you know where real joy, real satisfaction, real contentment comes from. Real lasting joy is in his presence. You know there is the solution. I can go to prayer. I can get quiet before the Lord. But the flesh reaches out and says, hold on, there's an easier way. There's a quicker way. And it seems like we often go for the quicker, easier way, so we're left dissatisfied. We get we get a jolt of pleasure. You get one moment, you get one instant of pleasure, and then it's gone immediately. There's no sustainability in it. There's no fulfillment in it. It's empty. It's temporary. It's fleeting. It passes quickly. But so often we trade the long-lasting, sustaining joy of the Lord for these quick temporal pleasures. And so it's very disheartening. It's like, man, I know what I ought to do. I know where the real joy is, but I don't do it. I go for the easy answer. And so it's just a real struggle for me because, like I say, it's this Americana comfortable lifestyle we have, where we have an abundance of pleasures on every side of us. And in one split second, I can turn to a multitude of different things that will fill my mind and fill my time and bring me some semblance of pleasure. And so it becomes really, really easy to sacrifice those times with the Lord for these instant satisfactions. And it's discouraging. It's I don't know what the answer is. Like, how is it? Just self-control and temperance? Is it just obedience to say no? That's what it is. It's a denying self. It's a sacrificing self, denying the flesh. The flesh wants these quick answers. It's saying no to it and going to the long-term solution, the prayer closet. And like I say, it's sad that you can know that that's where it's at, that that's where the answer's at, and yet not go to it. I tried to use an analogy to describe it to my brothers. I said, it's like if you're sitting in your chair and you're starving to death. You haven't eaten in so long. You're super hungry. You're just super desirous and craving of food, at that desperate hunger situation. And next to you have a refrigerator full of all sorts of good foods ready to eat. All you got to do is get up and go get it. But you're so lazy that you won't get up to do it. There's the solution, there's the answer, but you won't do it. And that's like, I find myself spiritually lethargic, spiritually lazy, knowing that the fullness of pleasure is in that prayer closet, but just too lazy to go to it. It's much easier to just turn to an instant gratification. That takes no effort. Going to the prayer closet takes effort. And so it's like, you see all these things. It's like, Lord, the prayer ought to be, Lord, take away the pleasures of the flesh, make it so that they're not desirable. Grant me the motive and energy and desire to go to prayer, and cause me to hunger and thirst for that prayer. It's just, I feel like I'm robbing myself. There's joy to be had, and I don't go get it. And so I was thinking about that earlier this week, just like this lack of prayer life, even though that that's the solution. It's such a foolish thing. It doesn't make sense, but yet it happens because of this spiritual laziness. So anyways, that was something I was thinking about earlier this week. And then I had another thing that kind of happened. It was a real brief moment, and it was real small. Small in like strength. And what I mean by this is I experienced this kind of out of nowhere moment of God's love. And it was just a sliver of it. I just got a taste of it, and it was just for a second. But it was so unexpected and so out of the blue that it kind of took me. I was like, wow. And so I was just kind of relaxing. I was reading a book, and like I say, it sprung out of nowhere. I don't think I was thinking anything about the love of God. It wasn't something that had occurred to me. I don't remember what I was reading in the book. I don't think it had anything to do with this particular topic. But so I was just there in that moment, and all of a sudden I just got this I don't know how to explain it. Like you just get um, drenched, like soaked in the love of God. All of a sudden you just sense and feel how much He loves us, and the power of His love, and it comes over you, and it rejoices your heart, and it brings tears to your eyes. And for me in this moment, it was just like I say, it was a split second. It happened, and then it was gone. But it was enough to cause me to tear up and to think about the love of God. And it's something that's been on my heart quite a bit over the last few years. Like I've been saved now for 19 years, going on 20. It'll be 20 years in April. And for the vast majority of that, I loved the Lord with all my mind. Like I was so enraptured by His word and taken by the wisdom of God, and I would just get so overwhelmed when He would reveal something in His word. It would bring so much joy. I loved learning about God. I loved experiencing Him with my mind, like thinking about the things of God, seeing the revealed wisdom of God in the Holy Scriptures, and having His Spirit open those Scriptures up and explain them to my heart. Like it was just, that was just the most amazing part of my Christian walk. And it was that way for a long time. It still is that way, but I started to realize a couple years ago, I started thinking about that. Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And so I started thinking, I've loved the Lord with all my mind. I think, I've, and even that, we fail even in our best efforts. Like, because there's times where you're not thinking about the Lord. You're wasting your thought life on other things, so you're not loving Him with all your mind. But I realized how much I lacked in loving the Lord with all my heart. And so I would often think about, like, what is love? Have I really felt, I know the love of God from an intellectual perspective. I know He loves me, and I understand the concept. I understand what He did for me and why He did it. He did it out of love, and I understand that, before we were born, He loved us and chose us. And so I understand those things from an intellectual perspective, but I don't know if I always feel those things. And when I do feel them, I don't feel them on the depth that other people seem to do. I think about, like, some of the great preachers I've heard that weep while they're preaching. And it's like, because they've experienced that love of God. And so it's often grieved me. Like, I don't know if, because of my disposition, because I'm not really an emotional person, I sat and thought, like, do I even know what love is? Like, outside of the academic, intellectual understanding of love, do I have an experiential knowledge of love? Do I know what love really is in a feeling sense? Do I feel love? And so I've thought about this for years, and it often grieves me. Like, I want to know in an experiential way the love of God. I don't want to just know about it intellectually. I want to feel it. I want to feel His love for me. I want to be able to respond, because I feel like that is how then you would respond in love. He first has to shower you with that feeling of love. I have the intellectual knowledge of it, so I'm able to return it intellectually, but I want to experience it emotionally and return it emotionally, if that makes sense. And so, like, that little moment of God's love that I had, just feeling that presence come over me, that's what I'm looking for. And it's something that's lacking, and then I suppose you think about like love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. That's I don't know what that looks like, and with all your strength. I don't know what that looks like either. It's my most of my spiritual walk has been based on the intellectual aspect of it. And that's not to say that it's not experientially real, that I'm missing out. It is, but the depth of my emotional connection is shallow, because I don't know, I haven't experienced, like, I don't know if it's nature or what it is, but that prevents emotional depth. And I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of rambling, but I'm trying to explain that the bottom line is I want to experience the love of God, so that I can then love Him as He loves me. Because I know I lack in love. I lack in love for God and for others. I'm not an empathetic person. I'm not I just don't have it in me, and perhaps that's because I haven't experienced it. Because how do we reflect back what we haven't gotten? Like, we give back what we get. I do teaching videos, and I speak about the things that I've learned of God because I've learned them, because it's been given to me. It goes out. So in order to give love, we have to receive love. And in order to fully receive love, it can't just be an intellectual acknowledgement of it. It has to be an experiential, emotional connection. And so I desire that greatly. I feel like it's a major part of my Christian walk that's lacking. And I think it affects everything I do. It affects the lack of empathy and love that I have for others. It affects just my demeanor, my disposition, my compassion, my understanding. It affects everything. And so, like I say, for the last few years, I've been desiring to know the love of God, so that I can return to Him and to others that same love, if that makes sense. And every once in a while I get a little taste of it. And just here recently, it just happened again the other day, and it's an amazing, beautiful thing, and I want it, and I desire it, and I know the Lord says, ask and you will receive, so I know He will give it in His timing. So anyways, I guess that would lead me to the third thought that I had this week, which was just, and I'm sure everybody again is thinking about it, something that's come up often in these podcasts. We're living in very perilous times in this country, with the political atmosphere, with the way the media portrays everything. It's just a chaotic atmosphere. It's like we're just on the verge of bursting, and how does a Christian respond to that? What are we supposed to do about it? Here recently, I've just kind of come back to the idea of just focusing on the kingdom of God, letting the secular world worry about the secular world. It's shouldn't be too much of our concern. We should be aware, I guess, but not caring, in a sense that we're not anxious, we're not worried, we're not unsettled. We trust God to be sovereign over the nations and over the political atmosphere. So, but it's very sad. I get sad because there's so much deception going on, and there's so many people bought into it. And that's very discouraging. It's like, man, this world is I don't, how do you even explain the time that we're living in? How do you even explain this current situation in America? Like, what are we looking at here? We've got just massive media lies in every area, from the scientific to the health to the political, just lying. It's all just, it's obviously propaganda, government propaganda with an agenda to point people in a certain direction. You can, like, it's obvious, you can see this, but yet people go along with it. And you've got the politicians that follow suit and are just full of lies, just constantly lying about everything. And it's so obvious. I don't remember where I was going with this. I just remember the other day I got really sad about it, which was a change in direction for me, because in the past I've been getting angry about it. And so sad is good. It's a good change from being angry. I went from, just desiring rebellion and revolution to just looking at it like it's just a broken society. And it's very sad. And it makes you wonder, it's like, I don't know where we're heading. I don't know where we're going. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom people out there that say we're in the last days. I don't know if that's true or not. I have no idea what's coming. I have my theories based on the conspiracy type research and studying that I've done. I can assume that I know where things are heading, but we don't know if that's really the plan or not. We I guess it comes back to, we just got to trust God. He is sovereign over the nations. He is the king over all kings. He holds kings' hearts in his hands, and he directs them like rivers of water. He points nations in the direction they're supposed to go. He turns the tides of things. He decides our fates as nations. And so we ought to trust him regardless of what's going on in this world. But in the meantime, there's so many people that are deceived and so many people that are blind. And that part is heartbreaking. It's like, man, how could people just be going along with this? I don't know what I'm getting at. I guess it was just really sad, thinking about just the way things are going. And it would seem like we're heading into even sadder times. Things are not looking good for this country. There's massive censorship going on, and that's all going to be directed at Christians eventually. It's we are the enemy. They want to silence our voice. They want to silence the message of Jesus Christ. They want to silence the gospel. And so the path we're on is one that leads to persecution of Christians. How far down that path we are, I don't know. I can't tell. But we're on that path. And many of our loved ones are going along with that plan. And that's very sad. It's very, very discouraging. Not discouraging, that's not the word, because discourage implies a lack of hope. But we know who wins in the end, and we know who's sovereign over all things. So there ain't really a whole lot of discouragement in it. It's more just of sad is the word. The state of the world is right now just very, very gloomy. And so yeah, I guess and I didn't have too much to say about that, and I don't know if I had an ultimate point. It's kind of interesting. I went from listening to political podcasts every day and being filled with anger and rage to not really listening to them at all. And my rage has subsided, and I'm just kind of getting refocused on the kingdom. But when you do see what's going on in social media and what's going on the news, it's very sad. So anyways, we're coming up on the break here. On the other side, I got a couple other issues that I want to talk about. Two other things that have occurred to me here over the last week. And so I appreciate you guys listening. Just hold on one moment, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. Hey, welcome back to the Weekly Walk. I'm your host, Joshua Ingram. You're listening to Season 2, Episode 2. And I was just talking about how sad the political atmosphere is in America. Not just the political atmosphere, but the entire culture. Everything is just very divided and angry. And from a biblical Christian perspective, who has awareness and discernment, it's so obvious to see that it's all based on deceptions. This is all being stirred up by a lying media and lying politicians, and it's very sad to see so many people falling for it, and not just falling, because it's not just that they're falling for it. It's that the fact that so many people are falling for it is affecting our entire nation. People buying into the propaganda is going to affect my life, my personal life, and my family's life. Policies are going to be set, directions are going to be determined because of these lies. And it's hard to, because as a Christian, we know that God is in control. We need to be okay and just trust that He knows what He's doing. But then you see that the whole thing is that, like, the direction we're heading in is based on deception, and that's a hard thing to just be okay with. But we trust the Lord, and so ultimately it just comes back to that. We have to worry about the kingdom. We preach the gospel. We fight sin. We live for holiness, and let the Lord do the rest. It's whatever will be. If we come into hard times, so be it. It's just our lot is already determined by God. So, anyways, I had another thought here just a day or two ago. This is something that I think about quite often. I was thinking about the idea of the Antichrist. Because anybody who knows me knows that I believe that Roman Catholicism is the Antichrist. The Bible doesn't call any specific person an Antichrist. The Bible says that Antichrist is a spirit and that there's many Antichrists. Although I think that section does imply that there is an ultimate Antichrist. But whether or not that's an individual or a system is up for debate. No individual is referred to as the Antichrist. There are several. When you look into end times eschatology, it can get quite tricky. There's several characters that are mentioned in symbology, and like there's the little horn from the book of Daniel. There's the man of sin from the book of Thessalonians. There's the Antichrist spirit, which is mentioned in 1 John. Sorry about that. There's the beast. There's two beasts mentioned in the book of Revelation. There's the woman who rides the beast. There's the false prophet. So there's all these different symbolic incarnations of evil when talking about the end times, and so it's like, can we incorporate all of them into one being called the Antichrist, which is typically what you would see with Americana eschatology, the Left Behind pre-trib type eschatology. It's all geared under one umbrella, one man that'll be a political ruler that takes over a united world, and he'll be the Antichrist. But if you look back throughout church history, a lot of the early church fathers, from the Protestant faith, believed that the Antichrist was the Roman Catholic system headed by the Pope. So in a sense, you could say the Pope is the Antichrist in the sense that he is the head of this Antichrist system. And so people like John Calvin, Martin Luther, Jonathan Edwards, Charles Spurgeon, all these guys from the olden days believed this, believed that Pope was Antichrist. And I tend to agree with them. When you look at the description of the man of sin in the book of Thessalonians, when you look at the description of the little horn in the book of Daniel, and then you learn the history of Roman Catholicism, it seems pretty obvious. And I would say that the woman who rides the beast in the book of Revelation is also Roman Catholicism. So can we call the little horn the man of sin and the woman who rides the beast the Antichrist? If that's the title you want to apply to it, that's fine. I would just say that it's a system, not a person, although it's headed by a person. And then, but the idea I was having again this week, and like I say, it's an idea I've thought about several times, is Jesus said that many would come in his name. Many would come, proclaiming to be Christ. And in Rome, we have that. There's a whole lot of popes throughout our history in the last 2,000 years. I don't know how many popes there's been, but I think there's probably been hundreds of them. And they claim to be Christ in flesh. They proclaim themselves to be the Holy Father. So many come in his name. That would be many. And they sit in the throne of God, proclaiming themselves to be God. The Pope has a big throne that he sits upon, wearing his fancy clothes. He gets carried around in his carriage, and people come and bow down and kiss his ring, and he's got all sorts of blasphemous titles that he calls himself. So it just seems to me that office is the Antichrist. And so then I start thinking, well, will there be an ultimate Antichrist? Will there be a finale, a final head? One of these popes with ultimate power over the entire world. And it seems to make sense to me. And one of the things that I was thinking about is before Jesus came on the scene, there were precursors to Jesus. There were foreshadows and examples of Jesus Christ. Moses was a foreshadow. David was a foreshadow. Melchizedek was a foreshadow of Christ. And then came Jesus Christ, who was God in flesh. He was the fullness of God in human form. And so when I think about the devil being an imitator, one who copies the things of God, I think, okay, he's got all these people that are precursors. They're foreshadows. They're little antichrists, so to speak. All these popes, all these figureheads, and you could say all the other false teachers, all the Buddhas, all the whatever other all the Dalai Lamas, these have all been antichrists. I think popery is the head of that, is the main power source, where you would say it's the seat of Satan. And so we've had all these precursors, all these foreshadows. Will there come a point in time where Satan himself copies God and takes on human flesh, like the fullness of Satan in a human form, putting his full spirit into a person? And I think that person will be the Pope, whoever the Pope is at that time, when Satan's cast down from heaven. Whatever that means. There's mystery there too, because he currently roams back and forth on earth, but it would seem to be that there's coming a point in time where he'll no longer have access to the throne room. And it says, then knowing that his time is short, he'll cause chaos on earth. So I feel like there's coming a point in time where there will probably be a fullness of Satan in body form, and that person will be at the head of the Roman Catholic system, because that is the seat of Satan. That is that Antichrist system. And then we could give him the name Antichrist, or beast, or woman who rides the beast, or the little horn, or the man of sin, or whatever it is. In the meantime, each of the popes that we've had to deal with is an Antichrist in themselves. and also has that spirit of Satan, in the same way that Melchizedek was a representative of Christ, and Moses was a representative of Christ. These popes are representatives of Satan. And in them is that spirit of Satan. You can see it in their eyes. Anybody with discernment, can go and look at the popes and see the darkness, see the evil in them. And so I can't remember where my thought culminated on this the other day, but I was just thinking, because I'd heard some rumors about the Pope being arrested or something like that, and I thought, man, I don't know. This world system belongs to Satan. And that's his seat of power, one of his seats of power. It's his ecclesiastical seat of power. It's his religious seat of power. He also has a financial seat of power with the world banks and the corporations, and he's got military seat of power with Washington, D.C. So I don't know what my ultimate thought on that was, but I guess it was just thinking about how there were precursors to Christ, and then God came in the flesh. So I wonder if there's precursors to Satan, and then he's coming in the flesh in the last days. And it would make sense. And I do believe we're getting really close to those last days. I think we're getting pretty close to the one world empire. It would seem like all the events going on are certainly leading in that direction. And things seem to be speeding up. Whether or not the Lord delays it, I don't know. But I don't know. It's just, like I say, crazy times we're living in, and interesting things to think about. So anyways, the last thing I'm going to talk about here before I let you go is a topic that, again, is often on my mind and something I've talked about numerous times here on this podcast. One of my greatest struggles as a Christian is my critical spirit, my cynicism, my pride, my ego, my attitude that often comes across in coarse jesting. I mask it in humor, and but it's really just a brother used the word alienating. I tend to alienate people through this cynicism and criticism. And I've mentioned on several podcasts, it's because the reason it comes up so often is because this is probably my biggest struggle that I have. One of two biggest struggles that I have is with this prideful ego, wanting people to submit to me, wanting people to bend themselves to my desires. People ought to do what I want to do and like what I want to like. And so it's like this sickening ego that's in me that is one of my biggest problems. And so recently I've been trying to make an effort to be more humble and kind in my attitude and my language, especially with my small group of friends. I'm trying to submit myself to them and care about the things they care about, and not be critical, not tear down their ideas or their likes and dislikes, but to just to accept them, to acknowledge them, and to submit myself to them and to appreciate them. And so I'm trying to do that, and I'm also trying to soften my language. I'm trying to like I say, a lot of this comes across in joking. Like in my small group of friends, a lot of our humor is picking on each other, calling each other names or just, whatever. And because it's done in humor, because it's done as a jest, it's often just brushed under the table. It's there's no real offense taken to it. It's just a joke, but it's grievous. And it's like, Christians shouldn't be talking like this. We ought to have clean, wholesome language. We ought to have pure language. And so I've been trying here recently to just soften my tongue, to not speak harsh, critical words to my brothers and sisters, but to accept them and to love them and to speak good things. Because when we're together as a body, we desire spiritual atmosphere. We desire to have the presence of God with us. It's, our fellowship has often turned to just joking around instead of spiritual activities. And then it's like, are we any different than the world? Isn't, and yeah, we're not cussing and swearing and drinking and smoking, but other than that, the world would be pretty comfortable with us because we're just sitting around telling jokes, playing games. Where's the spiritual benefit in this? Where's the wholesomeness in there? Where's the holiness? And so a part of that is guarding my own tongue, just trying to be careful about how I speak to my brothers and sisters. When they do something silly, to not just cut them down automatically with a joke, but to just be kind and gentle. So it's just something I've been focusing on here recently, and just kind of refocused on it again this weekend, to have a humble and gentle language. It's the tongue is so important. The scriptures talk often about our tongues and how we have the ability to tear down or build up with our tongues, how the tongue is a fire, it's untamable, that we're supposed to be slow to speak, because out of the abundance of the heart comes the language. We speak what is in our heart. And so when your heart is full of insecurity and selfishness and pride and ego, your language is going to reflect that, and it's a very damaging thing. It's a harsh, hard language, even when it's done in jest, even when it's done in sarcasm or coarse jesting. It still it has that barb, that prick to it, that it damages. And so I don't want to have that damaging language. I want to have peaceful language. I want to have loving language. And so I just, like I said, I just got kind of refocused on it this here weekend. And it's hard to do because everybody's grown so accustomed to everybody else always joking around that when one person tries to maintain a level of wholesome talk, everybody else is still goofing around and joking. And it's really easy to get sucked right back into that. It's hard to maintain a wholesome tongue. But I am determined. I am focused on it. I have been for years, but it's like, something's got to get done here. I've got to set aside this pride, set aside this low self-esteem and fear of rejection and just love and be humble and be kind and be gentle, because that's what we're called to be. But anyways, I guess that's all I got for you guys here tonight. So I'm going to wrap up. As always, I appreciate you guys listening. I love you, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time. All right, stay classy, San Diego.